It doesn't come up on this channel very often because the Smumps usually play together on PC, but I am a huge Nintendo fan. And despite making a cute little short, kinda roasting the announcement video, the reveal is still one of the most exciting moments of the year for me so far. It caused me to start envisioning all the games we could be playing in a year or so, and when I get excited, I have a tendency to go all out. So I started dreaming, and then I started writing. Eventually I had outlined my perfect first-party lineup for the Switch Year 1. Not what I think we're actually going to see, of course, and not even my absolute pie-in-the-sky titles, but the lineup I'd make if I were in charge of this company. With that said, I hope you'll come along with me for this journey, and let's hop into it. Starting out, I've got my launch lineup set for a July release, which is probably too early, but it's fine. The launch timing isn't super important, except for certain things being holiday titles. Releasing at launch, starting with the titles that we already kind of know about, so might as well. Mario Kart 9. While we don't have a title name yet, and some people suggested it will be called Mario Kart 10 because Tour exists, I just want to be transparent that I will vehemently hate if the titles go 7, 8, 10. So we're going to use the correct title, Mario Kart 9. Since we've already seen something of the game, and it appears to be another on the track racing style, I won't suggest to have an open world adventure like Diddy Kong Racing. Perhaps instead I'll just keep it simple and bring up an old favorite. Lean into the wider Nintendo catalog with this one. We loved the DLC from the previous game, with Link and the Inklings, for example, and pull both stages and characters from all over. Let me drive around Brinstar as Fox, for example. Speaking of Brinstar, well, I guess kind of. Metroid Prime 4. I trust Retro to make a great game. I just want to see it. My only comment is probably that I hope the wrong lessons weren't learned from the most recent 3D Metroid, Metroid M. Yikes, it feels weird calling that the most recent 3D Metroid. This lesson though, don't be afraid to let Samus Aran be an actual character, and not just the suit of armor. She needs to be a badass, of course. Don't let her be completely mute or emotionless. I doubt they'll make this mistake though, and I look forward to playing this game as soon as it comes out. Moving away from titles we know of, next I want to bring up the newest title in the Yoshi series, which I'm going to call Yoshi's Clay Days. Crafted World didn't seem to hit with everyone, but I personally loved it. It was a great game to play with your significant other, especially if they, aren't the best gamer around. Clay Days will hopefully be more of the same, but a little bigger, a little better, and a few tweaks on the major issues fans weren't fond of in Crafted World. Oh, and a better soundtrack, please. I will admit to not liking that myself. No reason to wait. Bravely Default 3. This one is for the JRPG fans. I imagine we'll have a completely new story like the last one, so I'm not going to spend time trying to guess what that could even be. I'll just say this is probably going to happen at some point, and I'm looking forward to it when it comes out. Alright, get ready to see a lot of old callbacks in this video. There's probably at least a couple of them. Starting with Pokemon Stadium 3. So Pokemon Stadium was a pretty simple game from the N64 era where you just battle Pokemon. Nice and simple. I'm kind of using this nostalgia bait as an opportunity to make a bunch of high quality Pokemon models for the rest of the generation. Seriously, the whole purpose of this is to make the battles and the Pokemon look good. And you can get a little money back by releasing an extra game based on that. Then you take these models from Pokemon Stadium 3 into the next mainline games to cut costs. There you go, Game Freak. I'm making you money and helping you release actually good titles. You're welcome. Please steal my ideas. Finally, the big 3D platform for the launch lineup. You know who it is. It's who it's gotta be. That's right. It's finally time for a 3D Donkey Kong game again. DK64 released, obviously, on the Sega Dreamcast, which released over a quarter of a century ago. It's time for another 3D collectathon. Though, personally, I hope you go a little harder on the adventuring and soften up just a little on the collecting this time. Okay? Thanks. And that wraps up the July launch lineup. Releasing the following month in August is Ring Fit Adventure 2. As someone who didn't really need a tool to help me get into exercising at the time, I'd never picked up the first Ring Fit. Honestly though, it looked really fun. And if they come back at us with an even more fleshed out sequel, you'll be catching me on the grind. I'm not opposed to ports, remakes, and remasters so long as there's enough new content around those as well. And along those lines, Fire Emblem Echoes, Genealogy of the Holy War. When I saw them call the Gaiden remake Echoes, I assumed that would be the moniker for Fire Emblem remakes going forward, but nothing ever came of that during the Switch 1 lifetime. So bring it up here, and actually put it to work. These remakes don't need to be the next big thing, just nice enough looking and faithful to the originals. Boom, easy payday. We never got most of those originals in the West anyway. Come on. One more remake and we'll move on. The Legend of Zelda Minish Cap. We probably won't get any big Zelda stuff anytime soon. Tears of the Kingdom was 2 years ago, and Echoes of Wisdom just happened. But that means it's a great time for the next Link's Awakening remake. Let's do this, Nintendo! Oh, and remember guys, watch out for those nuts of his. Moving into September, the Super Mario RPG remake reminded me how great that game was, and as much as I love the early Paper Marios and Mario and Luigi's, they never really replaced that game. So, give me Super Mario RPG 2. That's right, a sequel, a direct sequel to that game. And give the fans what they want. Let Gino and Mallow be playable again. It's been long enough. Oh my goodness, am I doing this one? WarioWare Absolute Winness. Featuring double Lua action. Yes, let Waluigi in, and have some microgames focused on two-player action where you control the dastardly duo. Has there ever been a better idea? Yes, but I still want you to do this one. To round out September, I'm thinking we should see a remaster of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 with Torna bundled in. It might be my least favorite Xenoblade game, but I can still recognize its value. There's a really good game here, and it deserves a touch-up, like the first game got on Switch. October is up next, and it's time for the next game we already know actually exists, Pokemon Legends ZA. Pokemon Legends Arceus was good, but it was very basic and could be significantly expanded upon. Now that they know this gameplay format is popular, give it the resources it needs to really kick butt. It might be too early for them to utilize any of those awesome assets made for Stadium 3, but even if so, that is an excuse to let the animations and designs look like garbage. This is gonna be a popular title, so go all in with it. You know, they get overlooked a lot, but puzzle games can be kinda goated. To save the rest of the spiel, I'm just gonna say what we all want to hear. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker 2. It's okay. You may now collect yourself. Captain Toad was a fun little puzzle experience introduced to 3D World, and then he got his own game. It's not overly complex, but it's a good time, and I think they could do even more with it. Personally, I want a 4-player multiplayer option. It doesn't necessarily have to be attached to the main game, it could be its own side content, but it should exist at the very least. Let's see the Captain back in action. So I know this next series is technically just Wars, but that is way too generic and won't leave an impression. So from now on, we're going to be getting Advance Wars sequels. It's been since the DS since I played a game in this series, but the popularity of Fire Emblem shows that there is room for this kind of gameplay if it's done right and with love. I mean, I might not have personally picked up the remake myself, but that's because of a lack of marketing on their part and the weird delays they had. It just kind of killed the interest. If you give it a fair shake, I think this series could stand up with the rest. You guys remember the digital pet craze in the early 2000s? Tomodachi's and all that other stuff? Well, with that segue done, give us Nintendogs and pets galore. If I remember right, there hasn't been a new Nintendog since Nintendogs and Cats, which was a 3DS launch title. It sold like 4 million units, which means the series definitely didn't die, it was just dropped. Bring it back with a bit more game in this game, plus a larger selection of pets to play with. Now with November next on the list, it is time to mention the big holiday title for the year. What else could it be, jokes aside, but the next big Super Mario 3D platformer? I have plenty of different ideas as to what exactly it could be, which I'd love to talk about in depth at some point in time, but to not drag the video for just one single section, I'll simply say that I'd leave this game alone in this month. There is no reason to cannibalize anything else having to try to compete with this juggernaut. December, the first 6 months have already featured Mario Kart, Pokemon, Metroid, and the next big 3D Mario. But there's still a few tentpole titles missing. One of those is Super Smash Bros. However, for this slot, I won't say a brand new game. Being realistic, I think the designers need more time to figure out where to go with the series after Ultimate, as Ultimate really was the ultimate entry. And if we want them to cook up something good, then they need time to cook. Still, tide fans over, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Redux. The DLC is included base game, with those modes from Wii U and 3DS, Smash Tour and Run, added in as an extra goodie. If you got any other little things you want to throw in, like the return of trophies, I sure won't mind either. Same month, however they want to release it, I want to see Golden Sun come back in some way, with the same level of quality as what Super Mario RPG got. I know the series is gone, but I still remember it fondly all these years later. Even if it's just a remake of the originals, please. I've said it very nicely. Pretty please. Stepping into 2026, a remake of Kid Icarus Uprising. This game was phenomenal with a great story, characters, and the music. However, the control scheme was not inherently fun to play with. So, fix that and just re-release the game. It honestly doesn't need much else done to it. If you want to add more, I mean, sure. But I would be happy just having a version of this game on current consoles that controls well. So those NES Remix games only got like 2 entries, right? Am I remembering that correct? Well, anyway, there doesn't need to be another. What we do need though, SNES Remix. SNES games are much more nostalgic for me. To be fair, my earliest memories start with the N64, but SNES games were still around and fun to play, unlike NES games, which even by that point were starting to seem pretty outdated. I guess I don't have much else to say on that. I would just really love to see an SNES remix. Into February, I'm bringing out my first of the Mario sports titles, the only one of the big four to get skipped completely on Switch. Mario Slugger's Grand Slam. I think the story mode should feature a more regular style baseball season, maybe 12 games before a playoff. Additionally, introducing this game is a feature I want added that will connect all the Mario sports titles called MKUA, or Mushroom Kingdom University Athletics. It's a little campus somewhat similar to the Tennis Academy from the Game Boy and GBA Mario Tennis games, if you guys remember those, but featuring characters that will appear in all of the Mario sports titles on this generation. You might primarily interact with the characters being focused on in that particular title, such as your baseball friends, but still be able to see those other guys in like the lobby or the cafeteria. It'll make the whole thing feel more alive and connected, and it'll give the players a unique experience of participating in something grander than just the singular game they're playing at that moment. Nintendo doesn't really have their own proper fighting game, do they? I feel like they should either create a new one, or perhaps just go back to the drawing board with Pokken Tournament and give us a sequel that addresses the numerous comments the fans had with the first one. Pokemon is super popular, and getting to control the battles is a really cool idea, though you could do so much more with that cool idea than what we got in the first one. Honestly, not the best. But it could be. I mean, why not have a little adventure like with the main games? You actually walk around a map, and if you run across a Pokemon trainer, you get into a Pokemon battle, and then it controls like Pokken Tournament. It doesn't have to be that in depth or even that large. Maybe just a short route with a few gym battles and then an elite. It doesn't have to be that in depth, but it could be really cute, and if the gameplay is solid, you'll mesh with both the casuals and hardcore with an entry like this. I mentioned this was a dream list, right? Well, well, even in my dreams, I know we're never getting Mother 3. But there is maybe just the slightest, tiniest possibility that we could actually see. That's right, Mother 4. I don't see why this couldn't happen. The Mother games are fairly disconnected from another, with their largest shared feature being the vibes. While they might be unique games in a sense, we've had plenty of examples from indie studios showing that it's perfectly possible for other people to make games with the Mother vibe. It would be nice if we got the original creators to do Mother 4, but it doesn't have to be. So, just do it, Nintendo! Stop being a... Sorry, that last part got a little intense. So let's dial it back a bit with my first title in March. Hyrule Warriors 3. Oh, sorry, did I say dial it back? I meant all the way up to 100. Hyrule Warriors 1 was a crossover featuring characters from across the timeline, while 2 was a direct prequel for Breath of the Wild. I wouldn't mind them going either route, though I personally think I'd prefer them taking the creative risk to tell their own entirely unique story. If they want a starting point to work from, there are several wars in the Zelda timeline, such as the one discussed at the beginning of Ocarina of Time. Either way, as a fan of both the Zelda and Musou series, I hope this is one crossover that sticks around at least for a little while longer. You guys ever watch Scott the Woz? Chibi Robo Future Help. It's going to be a very similar experience to the first game, but now you're taking care of a family aboard a colony ship heading to another planet. This can allow for a couple cute space gimmicks, but beyond that, please don't go crazy. Just make another actual Chibi Robo game. This series at least deserves to exist. Wario Land 5? So this is actually a series I'm not that familiar with. I know that this isn't technically the 5th game, and so they could also just call it Wario Land and go for the full reboot. Either way, throw in some of the characters people have come to love from the WarioWare games, as well as Waluigi. I'm gonna say that a lot from now on. Just like Luigi from Mario, whenever Wario shows up, Waluigi should at least make an appearance. He's clearly super popular with the fans, so just give them what they want. Moving into April, while Super Mario RPG should definitely still continue to exist, and I'm hopeful Mario & Luigi's comeback is here to stay, my favorite Mario RPGs are still the earlier Paper Mario games, especially Thousand Year Door. I think it's time to lean into nostalgia from those with the title I'm going to call Paper Mario Try. Since I'd love to write out a full plot synopsis someday, for this I'll just say that you team up with party members from the first 3 Paper Mario games, with the selected partners from 64 taking the first partner slot, and those from Thousand Year Door taking the second partner slot. Additionally, remember how when Mario fainted it was game over, even if your partners were still good to go? Well, this time around, at some point in the story you'll get Luigi and Peach from Super Paper Mario. and they'll actually be able to switch out into the lead spot. Not Bowser though, at least for most of the game, since my current story plan has him being the primary villain, at least for most of the game. Nintendo, I don't want another Star Fox 64 reimagining. Let me say that before I get into this next sentence so you really understand what I mean. I want another Star Fox game. I know it could be me being biased to my own childhood, but I'd prefer it be like Assault, which featured sections in the R-Wing, and on foot. However, I want both of those portions to be more fleshed out. I actually have really fond memories of Star Fox Adventures as well, so if you could combine a good, interesting portion of the story taking place on foot, I would personally really like that, though I understand this isn't typically popular with the majority of Star Fox fans. Either way, if you include it or not, as far as the story is concerned, I'm calling this one First Flight, and it involves the events that brought the original team together. It might be a bit of a retcon to the original story, but that's why I think this would be a good point to try and basically reboot this nearly dead franchise. Star Fox is awesome, and it deserves to be a regular in the Nintendo lineup, just as much as Mario and Zelda in my opinion. Additionally, for April, a Brain Age or Big Brain Academy game would slot in nicely. I don't have a lot of familiarity with this particular series of games, but I still see the value in the different kind of experience it provides compared to the rest of the titles I've been talking about. Alright. Oh man, we're almost done with the first year as we arrive in May, and we've got a big one. I think this is where they should put the Pokemon Gen 10 games. With this being the 30th anniversary of Pokemon, I want them to go all out in this entry. I've had a file on my laptop called Pokemon Gray and Pokemon Rainbow for as long as I can remember, as it was one of the first projects I ever wrote a plot summary for. Essentially, Pokemon Gray is this more serious take on the series for older players, T for teen and everything. And then Pokemon Rainbow was a little happier, a little easier, great for kids. It means the differences between the versions are slightly more extreme than usual, but come on, Pokemon is the largest media franchise in the world. They can manage it if they really wanted to. And then your entire fan base is satisfied. I'll probably talk about this more at some point because I just love talking about plot ideas. But to conclude this portion, I'll just say I personally see this world taking place in a Greek-like region. I think that'd be nice. While I don't want to put too much around a heavy hitter like Pokemon, I figure a remaster of Metroid Prime 2 could slot in with these two games likely having very different audiences that won't overlap that much. The first remaster was amazing, so just do that again, please. Thank you. Alright, with the final month, June, I want to start out by giving a certain property a second attempt at, well, existing. ARMS 2. I actually have the first ARMS game, and it was pretty fun for, like an hour. There's not much of substance to this game. That definitely needs to be worked on. Nintendo has always been good about characterization through character design, but I don't think that's enough all on its own here. Give an actual single-player mode, at least up to par with earlier fighting games, if not more modern ones. Nintendo has been around for a while, and while I think I already mentioned it, let me emphasize that I feel they should start utilizing their nostalgia to benefit their lesser-known properties. One of those being Rhythm Heaven, with the subtitle Beats by N. If you've ever seen the fan animations that slot other Nintendo characters into the game, this is exactly what I want. Utilize the vast selection of amazing Nintendo tracks as well. That'll get a lot of people through the door who might have never tried a Rhythm Heaven game otherwise. Lastly, and while I probably shouldn't be putting this right next to another fighting game, I wanted to talk about in this video, so oh well. Punch Out, Switch. I don't want this to do anything weird. Going out of your way to change up the formula only makes sense when the established formula is getting tiresome from overuse, which is not something we have to worry about with Punch Out. Keep it simple, keep it fun, just make another Punch-Out game. And with that, I have discussed my perfect Switch 2 year one based on ideas that I believe could at least be theoretically possible, even though, again, nothing like this will ever happen, but it's fun to dream. Still, even with how much I crammed in, there's a lot of titles I left out simply because the roster had already gotten so packed. We might have to do something about that. Alright, I'll see you guys later.